This happened to me back when I was 17. I went on a hike with my friend, about 4.5 miles down a dirt road, near the very end where there is a large undeveloped cul-de-sac. My friend jolts suddenly and starts panicking, saying, "What is that?" I kept telling him, "You're just tripping out." He kept trying to stop me and would whisper to me that there's something watching us. I told him to stop, thinking he was just trying to spook me, but he was really getting freaked out. This friend of mine is a big tough guy that's not really afraid of nothing. So it was strange, but I found it more annoying at the time than anything else, to be honest with you. After walking for about 10 minutes longer, I heard huge branches crashing and breaking near us. That's when I started to become frightened, and we decided to turn back. While walking back, I could tell that something was following us. We were both terrified. Suddenly, after a minute of calm, this creature leapt out behind us about 50 feet away and stared us down. We both took off running back down this road that led up to where there's a turn in the road. This massive 8-foot-tall wolf monstrosity just came out of nowhere. It didn't chase us, but me and my friend kept looking back to make sure that it wasn't following or coming after us. It just watched us. It looked like a werewolf right out of a movie. It was tall and very dark in color. It had long hair, long ears, and a long snout. I don't remember seeing any eyes or teeth or any of that stuff. I was so scared that I probably blurred a lot of that out anyway. We made it back up the road, and my one friend had urinated all over himself. It was funny in a way, but we were so scared that neither of us were laughing. He never talked about that day ever again, and I don't think we told anybody else. Who would believe us anyway? I was alone in the woods with my dog one day, just listening to Spotify, admiring the beauty in the trees. I and my dog decided to go have a look around for any cool pine cones or even arrowheads. You never know what you can find when you're out in the woods alone. My favorite is finding bones of animals, skulls, ribs, anything I can collect. I was in this huge backlot area to this large apartment complex that stretches way out, and there's a segment of woods, a very large segment that goes on and on. For how long, I'm not sure. I was walking around this back lot and was about to head down further to look at more cool stuff, when I began to hear sticks breaking in the tree line down further from me, about 30 feet away. I turned around and looked in the direction that the sound was coming from, and then I saw some huge branches and brush moving. I could clearly see something really big was behind the tree and in the brush next to the tree moving it. The grass and weeds that were right beside the tree line were also shaking violently, as if something was rattling around in them. It freaked me out, honestly, so I decided at the time to hastily head back the way I came, out of there, quickly. I'm walking back, and the rattling and rustling is going crazy in the bushes, and my dog is now terrified and was whimpering. As I'm walking quickly back, I'm looking down, and I make a very unnerving discovery. I did indeed find tracks. Since I did not come in this way, I never saw them originally. 2 sets of tracks, both very large tracks that I found were much farther apart than the first set, and were only about 20 feet apart in total. The tracks were huge canine tracks, and they switched back and forth from 4 tracks to 2, meaning that they were walking bipedally for at least half the time that they appeared on the ground. Both sets of the tracks were like this, and they both led directly to where I was hearing the shaking, and they led right in that direction of trees. I'm not about to get eaten by a large ravenous wolf. No thanks. I went hiking out in Southern California last summer, and I saw this thing that looked like some kind of wolf or big German shepherd. I never saw one before, but I hear them sometimes around here. I've heard people refer to them as wolf head men because they have this wolf-like head. I don't know if that's actually what they're called, but my family and friends call them that. Most of my family knows about them and has seen them tons of times. In fact, I even heard some howling just before sunset a few weeks back near a cabin that I frequently visit with some friends. I've heard plenty more howling since then though. They seem like they're all over the area I live in. I try to stay out of specific wooded areas around me and hear as much as I can, but I always feel like they're around me. Like maybe there's a large pack of them. I hear them at night sometimes, howling really loud. It reminds me of wolf howls that you hear in the woods, except these howls sounded much deeper and louder. You can tell the volume alone that it came from a bigger animal. Much larger lungs, guttural, a much deeper growl. They are very disturbing howls. I fear it will show itself more and more the longer it hangs around in the area. They get braver, like most animals do. Take a cougar, for example. They hunt until all the food is gone. Then, they come into contact with humans in search of more, and they get brave. Then, they start attacking people. Anyway, I come from a small town where everybody knows each other, so my reputation is a big deal. I don't think I'm ready to publicly speak out about it. Even my family keeps it incognito, but they're bad in this area. People think I'm crazy, but I'm not. I know I'm not crazy. I do know there is something strange in the woods, and I'm not going to be afraid of it. If I'm just going to avoid going to certain spots in the woods where these things live, I certainly don't want it to run into such creatures being out there, and you can't tell me that they're not around. In fact, one time my friend was telling me about how he saw one of these things walking up near his place just outside of Santa Barbara, up in the hills. He took me to his house. It was a newer house that he had just bought, and the spot where he saw this thing, about a week after he originally saw it. I don't know if he's told anybody else about this, but I believe him. He told me when he saw this thing, walking up on his property, he went out to see if he could track it down. He probably could track it maybe 50 feet up a steep rocky hill, but then he heard this loud howl, and a smell accompanied it by rotting meat. He thought it might have been an overly large coyote or dog, but when he got closer, the tracks turned and walked off into the forest bipedally, where he couldn't track it anymore. I don't know if it was the right call for him to try and track it down, but maybe he was curious. I thought he was crazy for it and should have stayed away, in case it was close by. When he described the howl to me that he had heard, it kind of wigged me out because it was the same howl that I had heard, down to the T of the description of it. He talked about how loud and ear-shattering it sounded. A lot of people stay pretty hush-hush about this kind of thing. They might be scared as of what they hear, but they're more terrified of what they don't know is going on. The area in which I live and he lives isn't far apart, but it's pretty densely populated around here. But I seriously doubt that my family and friends are the only ones around here hearing these things, these howls, these noises, and seeing these things. We have to do something quickly before these things start coming out into the public. There's an area beyond my house that has a ton of old deer stands. I've never seen anybody hunt back there, ever. It's got an eerie feel to it. Every time I've ever wandered back there, I get the creeps, and I just imagine a big predator walking around back there. People being afraid to go out at night back there because they're gonna get snatched. Maybe that's just my inner horror movie talking. Well, originally, until my thoughts became a literal nightmare. I used to think I was just overly afraid because I had watched too many horror movies. And then, I saw the largest upright walking coyote that I've ever seen. It was massive, and I could see the tops of its ears over its head. It was radiating that horrid yellow glow from its eyes. I honestly thought it was some sort of werewolf or wolfman to me, until I saw it in full view in the open, eating the deer. It's hard to comprehend what it was exactly, but I can tell you that whatever it was looked much larger and angrier than a typical coyote. I think this thing came from the nearby creek, where there are a lot of deer that like to congregate and drink water. Initially, I first saw it when I was back there exploring, thinking about all the creepy Silent Hill-esque things that happen in this part of the woods with the abandoned stands in them. I heard a bunch of commotion coming from the direction where the creek is. So, I was curious and went a little further to investigate. That's when I saw it for the first time. This massive coyote-looking creature attacking and killing this deer as it was drinking at the creek. I was stunned at what I was seeing. Not even more than a few seconds of staring at this monster, I could hear it making this clicking noise as it was chomping down on this dead deer. It had probably been there for maybe 20 seconds. Then it stopped. I was frozen in complete and utter panic and thought it was going to kill me next. But it slowly looked up at me. I heard it let out this nasty, god-awful growl. I turned and ran as fast as I could to get up out of there. It was almost as if this thing had read my mind and my thoughts. Judging by its expression alone, I just remember thinking, werewolf. It was so tall and intimidating looking. I didn't know what to make of it at first, but then I realized, if I don't leave now, I'm going to be its next meal. God, it really did resemble a large upright walking coyote. Very shaggy and matted fur. It was so huge, and a gray-white color, but off-white, with a long snout. It was wet too, looking like it just crawled out of the creek and attacked this poor doe. The whole experience has left me freaked out so much that I don't go back there exploring anymore, at least like I used to. Then afterward, I started to really think critically, and maybe there's a reason people don't hunt back there anymore. I don't know. There are many areas with abandoned tree stands, but I can't accurately describe to you the feeling that that part of the woods gives you. It really just makes my skin crawl being back there. And then I go and see that coyote thing, and that just sealed the deal for me. Do I think there's a large werewolf-type creature ravaging the lands back there? Not quite. Do I think there's a large unknown predator that looks and resembles a werewolf back there that I want to avoid completely? Yes.